2009 Mercedes C300 oil filter housings leaking oil. I'm Brian Eslick from How to Automotive. I'm going to show you how to reseal that. So we're going to get started by removing this cover. You just lift up and pull off and set it aside. And here's the oil filter housing. And there's a gasket back here behind the block where it mounts to the block. That's what's leaking. So we're going to start by lifting the vehicle up and removing this lower shield here. The reason why is we're going to remove some coolant and stuff like that and oil, and we don't want the stuff landing on the shield and dripping on the shield. So go ahead and remove the shield. Just take the bolts out around the perimeter. Next, we need to take the drive belt off after we're taking the lower shield off. Go ahead and put a bucket underneath, get ready to catch the coolant too. So to take the drive belt off, you'll need a 17mm socket and a ratchet. Is the belt tensioner. And you're going to put a 17mm socket on that little bolt right there and rotate it counterclockwise, and that'll release the tension from the belt. So it'll look like this with the ratchet on there, and you just rotate it counterclockwise and you go ahead and remove the belt. So we need to remove this thermostat housing here to get to one bolt on the oil cooler or oil filter housing. So to do that, you can go ahead and just pop this clip out here and then pull your hose off, your upper hose off, and have your bucket ready to catch the coolant. And then after that, we're going to remove this idler pulley. So you'll find the female Torx bit and remove that. Okay, to get to the bolt here, we need to take the Torx out here, and then there's another Torx right underneath. We just need to loosen it and then just kind of lift the air pump up a little bit, and then you can get to the bolt here. Remove that bolt, and then there's one more bolt below right here, and you also unplug your sensor here. So I went ahead and removed the bolt here and I just loosened the bolts over here. There's two of them, the Torx screws, and I was able just to maneuver, and I also took off the little air boot. They went here. Then you can go ahead and remove the last two bolts for the thermostat housing. Remove it and set it aside. Now what we're going to do is I recommend you taking the oil filter off now, and then you can use your little something to suck out some of the oil so it doesn't drain all over the block. And then after that, there's going to be a couple of these, about 4 of these Torx bolts here on it. So they're here, underneath here, and we're going to remove all of those. And there's one, it looks like 2 down here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that I see right off the bat. Go ahead and remove all of those after you remove the oil filter. So after removing the oil filter, I got this little device here. You pump it and it kind of creates a suction, and I suck out as much of the oil that I could out of the housing. That way when I unbolt it, it doesn't run down all over the front of the block any more than it already has been. Now you're going to go ahead and remove the 6 female Torx bolts, or male Torx bolts. Okay, so to get to one of the bolts, which is right here, looks like we're going to have to remove the belt tensioner. So there's going to be a Torx bolt here and one about right here underneath, and you can see it with your flashlight. So you go ahead and remove the bolt here and here, and the tensioner will come off, and then you can get to the bolt here. I tried using the wrench and torquing it out of the way and see if I can get to it, and it would work. So we have to remove it. So to actually get the belt tensioner, the bottom bolt, you have to leave the top bolt tight first. Put your 17 on there and crank it around a little bit, and then you get your ratchet and your socket on there, and remove the bottom bolt first, and then release the tension, and then you can get the top bolt and remove it out of the car. Now with the tensioner out of there, you should have no problem getting to the rest of the bolts. So after you get the last bolt off, you just give it a light little pry like on the top right here, and it came right off. And you want to make sure you get your bucket ready, because it's a lot more coolant and the oil is going to dump out. And also you want to keep track of your bolt, because they are different lengths, and so you want to kind of make a note where you take which bolt come out of where, so you know how to put it back together. Now what we're going to do is we're going to clean up the surface of the engine block, clean up all this excess oil and spillage here, and then what we're going to do is change out the gasket here. So we'll take a little pick and take it out, and then we're going to remove all the Torx that go around the oil cooler here. So we'll remove that, and then the oil cooler itself will come off, and then there's an O-ring behind this that we'll change out, and then we'll clean everything up and reassemble this and then put it back on the block. So after cleaning the oil filter housing and the cooler up, I changed the gasket out, and I went ahead and started the bolts and torqued it down, and I did a crisscross pattern, so like I kind of did here, and then I went over to this corner over here, and then this corner, and then the top, and over here, and I did that and a crisscross pattern, and I tightened it down to 14 3/4, 15 foot-pounds basically. So I torqued that down. Now I'm gonna replace the gasket here and make sure the block is clean. Then I'm gonna, after the gasket's on, I'm gonna reassemble, put the housing on, and start the bolts and torque those down in the same pattern. So I'll start in the middle, and I'll torque it down to 15 foot-pounds, and I'll do one 15 foot-pound, 15 foot-pounds, go up to the top and do 15 foot-pounds, and then back at the bottom and do these all 15 foot-pounds. So after getting the oil filter housing and cooler bolted up to the block and torqued down, go ahead and replace the O-ring and your oil filter. So I'm about to reinstall the belt tensioner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the bolts in there like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this one just a couple threads, and then I'll reach behind and start this one. And once I got this one started a couple threads, I'll tighten this bolt, top bolt, all the way up to 15 foot-pounds. And then after it's tight, then I'll put my my socket on here, and I'll rotate it out of the way, counterclockwise. And then I'll put my finish tighten this bolt down to 15 foot-pounds. So as you can see, I got the bolt started here, and then I reached around underneath and I started the bolt here. And so now they're both started. So now I'm going to tighten this bolt, and then I'll put my ratchet on here and torque it out of the way to get clearance for that bolt. Now it's time to go ahead and install our thermostat housing. We recommend replacing the gasket. And if yours has been on there for a long time, go ahead and actually replace the thermostat housing. You already got it off, there's no additional labor, just the parts. And then so you go ahead and bolt it up with the sensor facing downwards like that. Go ahead and bolt it up and torque it down to 15 foot-pounds. Now that the thermostat housing's on, we go ahead and plug the electrical connector in. So route it under and plug it in, and kind of tuck it in beside the filter here, and plug that in. And then you're going to restart your bolts for the air pump, and put your little hose back on. After that, what you're going to do is you're going to put the idler pulley back on here and bolt that down. And what I recommend you do is put a little blue thread sealer or Loctite on the threads, and that'll help make sure that it doesn't vibrate loose and back off. And this is kind of what it looks like. I get it at my local parts store. Loctite is another brand. Permanex is the brand I'm particularly using right now. Now you can take your upper hose and put it on and push it in, and then put the clip that you took off back into the grooves. And then when you want to make sure you pull on it and make sure that it doesn't pop back off. Next, we're going to put the belt back on, and I wanted to show you the diagram of how the belt routed, just in case you forgot. Go ahead and put your belt back on. Now that the belt's on, I'm going to lift it up and put the lower shields back on. After putting on the lower shields, then you can fill it up with the proper Mercedes-Benz coolant. You'll fill the reservoir up here, and then you probably lost about a quart or so of oil, so double check your oil level, and then start her up and let her run until the thermostat here opens up, and then double check your level here. Okay, so after topping off my oil, I started the car for a second, let it run, and then check the oil through the dipstick here, and then once that's secure, now I'm gonna start it up and let it run. I'm gonna fill the coolant all the way up to the top and let it run until the thermostat opens up. And then this is an expansion tank, so you don't want it to overfill it. So what you do is after the thermostat's open, you suck a little bit of fluid out till it's at the proper level on the bottle, and then you're going to snap on your cover, and that completes the oil filter housing and cooler reseal on a 2009 Mercedes C300. I'm Brian Eslick from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos and encourage you to subscribe.